I like video game music. Well, not exclusively. I still have a great share of my favorite artists. Tyler, Kanye, Outkast. See the AOTY for some more. And I'm not making some outlandish claim like, oh, VGM is better than regular music or vice versa, because to be frank, both sides are kinda corny. Yeah, I don't think Sonic Unleashed will ever top the College Dropout or Flower Boy, but does that make Sonic Unleashed bad in its own right? If you want to listen to video game music, go for it in my opinion. If you want to ignore it, fair enough. But regardless, both have their places in society. So then, what is the problem with listening to video game music? Why is there so much animosity towards video game music and vice versa? Why do people who listen to video game music tend to hate regular music? It's a complicated question, but in order to answer why, we also need to ask, why do people like video game music? Video game music, as the name implies, is music that accompanies a video game. Typically, most video game music is composed solely for the purpose of said video game, and you are intended to listen to it within the confines of said game. Oftentimes, video game music can take on multiple forms, such as a simple ambiance or being quite in your face. Video game music not only holds the task of being a good song in its own right, but also immersing the player into the game, much like any good movie soundtrack. Simple, right? Just create a 2-minute song per area and have it loop on end. Well, no. Because video games are inherently dynamic media. You play, you grow, you build, and all of this happens over several hours. But within these several hours, and even singular levels, can lie numerous shifts in a singular song. Melodies altered and repeated to create an overall narrative to show how far you've come as a player. And no game explores this better than the indie game Celeste. In Chapter 2 of this game, the first song starts out quite ambient and quite unnerving, if somewhat empty. You have an upwards melody, alongside a hauntingly beautiful piano to accompany it. The quiet bass adds an off-putting element of corruption to it all. The song leaves you on the edge, waiting for something more. But then you get that one scene when your curiosity is at its wit's ends and you find the mirror. And then the song really begins to kickstart. The synthesizer only intensifies, this kick-ass percussion starts up, and the piano only grows in volume. Within only a single cutscene, the track is completely transformed into a different beast, going from a bunny to a whole-ass lion in seconds. This is where the main gimmick of this level becomes available, and that's also where the level kicks off as well. And then it grows quiet. The evil version of this girl pops up, and she chases you down. And then we get another switch up. Suddenly, this beautiful track shatters and goes into a panic. In just 5 minutes, this song goes from anticipation to excitement and finishing off with eternal dread. Damn, that might be a pretty good video game. But this is what I'm talking about with the power of video game music. They immerse you so deeply into the experience, and listening to it on its own always brings me back to that first time I played any game. So, despite its seemingly unimportant nature, video game music is not some cheap effort. Companies still shell out decent chunks of change for even a small soundtrack. So, let's compare that to a traditional piece of music. Inherently, music is meant to be heard, so in most cases, you'll often first listen to a song on a radio, Spotify, movie theater, TikTok, pretty much anywhere with a speaker. The intent is slightly different, but ultimately contemporary. A traditional song doesn't aim for immersion, but rather a mood. This can be through the beats or lyrics. So for example, let's take one of my personal favorites at least, On Site. But fundamentally, both of these tracks are about the same in terms of composition. At least when it comes to core values, the songs themselves at least sound completely different from each other. But in terms of how the song got here, they're pretty similar. Both have a very general mood, both have a composition, and both are still ridiculously expensive to produce. So, what's the issue? If you've been following me for these past few minutes, theoretically, there should be none. But say you're a little stickler. What if the intent is a deal breaker for you? After all, most songs in video games don't even have lyrics. Most game songs are content with providing a simple beat, composition, production, and nothing else. While most mainstream songs contain all of the above and lyrics. When you turn on a song, you expect to immerse yourself in that experience, get a feel for the lyrics and everything. But when you turn on a game, yes, a decent chunk of people will blast by without a care in the world about the soundtrack. But does that mean the soundtrack doesn't matter? Because the other chunk, the one who loves your game, will appreciate the artistry underneath. Video games are art, and art is music. So, dear viewer, if you remain unconvinced, please consider the following. Suppose the interesting case of instrumental songs which are never intended to have vocals in the first place, or better yet, songs which had the lyrics originally, but were stripped to solely be the composition and the composition alone. Would we quantify that as music? In my opinion, all of these, video game music, classical music, and instrumentals, all count as music equally. Because music, as defined by Wikipedia, is the arrangement of sound, creates some combination of form, harmony, melody, rhythm, or otherwise expressive content. Essentially, what this is saying is that any form of these is as equally as valid as the other. So, mission accomplished, right? Video game music is no different than your typical song, outside of intent or anything else, and thus qualifies as music. Or so you think. Because there are some people, in spite of me presenting these arguments, who still claim that video game music isn't real music. Okay, I'll entertain the idea, but I'll fire it back as well. So here's some frequent rebuttals I've seen about video game music, and why I believe they're inherently false. Video game music is repetitive. Outside of anything I could conjure up, this is the one that arguably had the most credence. As a video game song is often played on a 2-minute loop or so, one piece can often get repetitive. You're constantly revisiting these areas. But as I said before, the potential for video game music to be dynamic largely shuts down this idea. Video game music is just ambience. No, it isn't. Look up any video game music playlist and even try to argue that half of it is just ambience. Video game music is just bleeps and bloops. This argument largely comes from the idea that most video games use sequenced audio, in which case, yes, most early consoles were not capable of producing high quality audio. But it's been nearly 30 years since the PlayStation launched, which introduced CD quality into songs. Yes, the Nintendo 64 still largely used sequence music, but the PlayStation was undoubtedly the more popular console. So even since the 1990s, most game soundtracks were streamed. And now most video game soundtracks have comparable quality to an average album. If you're confused about the difference between sequenced and streamed, sequence audio is like giving a band the sheet music and playing it in real time. Streamed audio is like recording that audio and playing it back. A majority of video game music today is simply streamed because it's the easier implementation, but that's not to say that sequenced audio doesn't have some place in video game music. But now you can produce a video game soundtrack that isn't simply bleeps and bloops. Video game music wasn't meant to be played outside the game. Some of my favorite songs are songs used for movie credits of all things. And also a large majority of video game soundtracks can be bought today, so video game music doesn't have lyrics. It can and frequently does. And finally, video game music is just not as good as traditional music. For real, this is an argument that I've just heard non-stop. Now this is obviously slightly exaggerated, mind you, but the amount of times that I've heard something akin to this argument is surprising, given its lack of factual basis at all. At least when it comes to the other arguments that I presented, it's based on something, albeit something that's not true. But this argument is as valid as saying R&B is better than pop. Now personally, I prefer R&B to pop, but both are as valid as another in the listening experience. Like I said, I'm not even trying to argue that video game music is inherently good, but more so that it is inherently valid as music. But also, for those who already know this fact, the opposite applies as well. I've seen many video game music listeners go as far as to say, or at least a very large portion of music today is straight up bad. I cannot understand this mentality. By completely precluding yourself to any sort of media, you fail to garner any sort of opinion on it, and thus you only limit your experience on the world. But hey, maybe I'm looking too deep into this. Maybe I'm not even correct at all. God knows that I've never claimed to have the popular opinion on this site. But what I'm trying to say, above all else, is that music is music. If you like video game music, good. If you absolutely can't stand it, as long as you've given it a fair and honest shot, I have no issues in your opinion. But for those who haven't, I think video game music can provide a solid experience that many people today overlook. Give it a shot. Hell, you want my honest opinions? I've got your back. But for now, that's all the time that I've got. In the meantime, I'm gonna go back to playing some Metroid because that franchise is fun as hell. But that's a story for another time. Hey guys, zeusdeegoose here. Just wanted to say thanks for watching the video. This was a bit more soapboxy than usual, and I think it turned out pretty good as per usual. This soapboxy video is more of a one-off thing. I'm still planning on doing the Mega Man series, and I'm actually working on Mega Man 4 right now. But I've also had another video planned which actually pertains to the platform lighting community, so I've gotten a few people on board with that project, and I'm currently working on it as we speak, so I hope that turns out great. As for Mega Man, the series will continue as per usual. I had some life things pop up recently, so I wasn't able to do a video about Mega Man 4 in time, but I think I should be good for the next few weeks, and hopefully going into summer, I'll be able to produce videos more frequently because I have nothing else to do. So, if you have any comments or concerns, please let me know. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, do all that YouTube jazz. If you dislike it, please let me know as to why you disliked it, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.